And we're recording. Okay, so what's wrong with this spot here? Why do I have to beg people to come listen to me? You're paying money for this. Come up to the front of the room, Scoot. Please. Really? Come on. Okay. You realize that, like, I end Monday, Wednesday, Fridays not being able to talk because I have to scream to the back of the room for 3 classes in a row. So, first thing I want to talk about really quick, the desktop changed. How many of you managed to come out for Mark Thomas's talk? Anybody get to go see that? Yeah, I think I asked this before, yeah. All right, so we have one more talk left this semester, Skype talk. Brad Lucas, he's actually a graduate from here. I didn't know him. He works as a compositor in visual effects. So if you're enjoying the visual effects part of this, he actually works on The Walking Dead, or he has worked on The Walking Dead. So I think he would be an interesting one. I also think, if I'm not mistaken, he's like still regional. Like that kind of work is stuff that I think still is done like on the East Coast at times. So this is one of those jobs where you don't always have to go to California for it. And Atlanta kind of has a pretty decent film industry going on, film and TV. I still don't know why Nashville doesn't, like why they're not funding that more, but that's a politics thing that we could not talk about. So what we're going to look at today is your future. This is a day kind of for me to answer questions for you. And the hard part about that is you may not yet know which questions to ask. I feel like it's important to just kind of have a day where you can just talk about we just hop in and start teaching this stuff, right? And you're like, what am I going to do with this? Where am I supposed to go? Like, you probably have tons of questions. And I like to just have a day where it's just open, like anything you need to ask, anything you need to talk about. But I have some starter categories, some stuff that will get us like kind of get the ball rolling on that. Having said that, like every day can be that. Like if you have a question at any given point, if you're like, hey, what does a producer do? Just ask that. Like I usually try to leave some point in time where we can have like a little bit of conversation, even if it's at the beginning of class. So, where I wanted to start was midpoint review, because that's going to be the one that affects you the most. How many of you think you have a vague idea of what midpoint review is? Okay. So we try to explain it as much as possible, but it's still confusing when you get into the class. So I'm trying to make a chart, and then I want to give you some examples, so you can kind of understand what to be looking forward to, or what to be expecting. So, midpoint review, our schedule, like your next, why does this have to be so small or so big? 90%? No. It fit fine over on this screen. So this is the next like 3-4 years of your life, right? Or at least this is how the curriculum is supposed to work. I left a lot of classes out of here. This is just the most crucial parts for you to understand right now, right? Your first year here, whether you transferred in from another school or whether you're coming straight from high school, whatever, your first year here, you have to take 4 classes, right? There are 4 concentrations in digital media, and it's one class for each of those concentrations. You are probably currently in 2. What's the other one you're in? Just
Visual effects.
Visual effects. A lot of people seem to be in visual effects or in this class because it's right after this class. Am I guessing? Yeah. So you're just doing those back-to-back classes. There's also visualization and game design. So you're going to spend a whole semester in that class. Hopefully by the time you're done with that class, you understand what that concentration is about. But that's not always true. Like, for example, this class that you're in right now, we have to do a little bit of modeling just because you need something to animate, right? I mean, I can make a bunch of models for you and give them to you, and I'll probably start doing a little bit more of that in the future. But you have to do a little bit of modeling, and And I think sometimes people leave this class thinking, oh, animation, that means I'm going to do a lot of modeling in this major. Not necessarily. Like there are opportunities to do modeling, and modeling is something that everybody needs to know in digital media, at least a little bit, right? And so this is the class that I kind of use to teach that foundation. But modeling is in almost all four of these. Well, probably in all four of these. So you'll do a little bit of you could do a little bit of modeling if you're in the animation concentration. In game design, all video games need models because otherwise you're walking around in an empty room. Visual effects, right now in one of the visual effects classes, they are blowing up buildings and Houdini. Well, you have to get a building from somewhere, right? And in principles of visualization, modeling is one of those things where that's sort of the next step of the visualization process. Let's say you are tasked with designing a new water bottle, right? Something stylish that people will want to grab off the shelf, has a neat design to it. And it may start off with just a sketch. Maybe you're doing it, in your sketchbook. Then maybe you take it into a marker illustration. But then the next step of that might be to actually make a 3D model of it so you can sort of see all sides of it. So modeling can fit into all of these. The question you need to be asking yourself right now is, if modeling is the thing you're loving, right? Like, you're like, I love this, I want to do more of it. Like, which of these concentrations do you need to be in, right? If animation is the thing, like if setting the keyframes is the thing you're loving, which of these concentrations do you need to be in? What lighting and rendering? If you don't like any of the 3D stuff, which of these concentrations do you need to be in, right? And that's usually the main question most people have, either while they're in this class or after they're done with the principles classes. They're like, I did some modeling in 3 different classes. Where do I need to be if I want to be a modeler? So everybody's questions are going to be kind of different, but if those are the questions you're asking, I want to hear them. I want to know, like, what is it you're enjoying? I can help guide you to a good choice, or where you're going to get the most opportunities for that in your future classes, right? One of the ways you can test this out, most of you have probably been here before, but ETSU Digital Media has its own website right there. It's this one. This is the university's website. We kind of have this other thing that's sort of out there by itself that looks a little more designed. And if you just go to curriculum, one of the ways to sort of find out like which concentration you want to be in is just by looking at the different concentrations. Everybody has to take the digital media core, right? And that's some of what we're looking at today. We're not necessarily looking at like the art and like history classes. But after those, like looking through these concentrations and seeing which classes sound like the most exciting classes to you is probably going to help you decide which concentration you want to be in. And if you look at the animation concentration, I can talk about each of these classes. So technical direction is entirely rigging. Right? You're doing lots and lots of character rigs, problem solving that is technical, a little bit of scripting. It's the technical part of animation. Animation fundamentals, there is no modeling. I give you all of the rigs, all of the models. I usually even give you a scene that is lit. All you have to do is animate it and render it. Right? That is for most of the animation classes that I teach. That's the rest of the scenario. Right? I don't make you model the items you're going to rig or animate. And the reason for that is because I want you to be able to focus on making things move. Right? 3D animation is right now it's a little bit of a generalist class. It's a little bit more like the super advanced version of this class where you do a little bit of all of it, a little bit of rigging, a little bit of modeling, but still primarily focusing on making things move and how things move. Effects animation is about all of the stuff that the cereal project you have, where you're simulating cereal, like fabric, fluids, water, explosions, smoke, all of that stuff. It's all of the stuff that usually is not controlled with keyframes, right? It's stuff that is simulated through physics. And character animation is character animation. You're not going to make your own characters. You're not going to rig your own characters. We spend the entire class just learning how humans move, right? And one class is not nearly enough for that. Like, there could be, like, you could take character animation, like, for 4 years straight, like, every semester, and that's just barely going to be enough to get enough practice in character animation. Like, humans are really complicated. So adding on, like, modeling your own character to that just is overwhelming. Rigging your own character to that. Even lighting and rendering, we try to simplify as much as possible. So you have to take all of those. You get to choose one of the following here: raster-based imaging, visual effects, and compositing. It's whichever one, like, kind of feels more like what you're interested in. Now, I will say some of these, like animation fundamentals, character animation, I give you the option of doing some 2D animation in that if you'd like. So let's say you really are enjoying the 2D animation side of this. Maybe raster-based imaging is the one that you would gravitate toward, right? But if you're really enjoying the effects animation part of this, then maybe visual effects and compositing. After you make that explosion, how do you combine that with actual video footage of something? Yes.
So what do you do in those classes?
These two?
Yeah.
Raster-based imaging is all, it's like the advanced Photoshop class. There's actually an advanced raster-based imaging as well. Photoshop is just a really deep program. So it's mainly the stuff you see hanging on the walls out in the hallway, like the photo manipulation, it's mainly that stuff. But it's really like learning the ins and outs of Photoshop, how you can manipulate it. And once you understand Photoshop, you can pretty much use any raster program. So, yes.
Despite how many times it's been brought up, I never understood the difference between raster and vector.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a good time for that. So, raster is, I used to have good illustrations of this. Let me just Google something so you can kind of see it. I'm going to steal stuff from the internet. Yeah, let's just use this whole search page so you can kind of see it. So raster just means it's made up out of pixels, right? Eventually, everything that shows on our screen is made up out of pixels, but the way the software package calculates it, in an image, a raster image, the smallest unit of measure is a single pixel, right? You can't like cut a pixel in half, or half of a pixel be one color while the other half is another color. So when we're talking about raster images, it just means all of the image is just made up of a whole bunch of tiny dots. And if you take you all have probably done this before. If you take a picture, I mean, even this picture here, that you find on the internet and zoom into it really close, you start seeing all the pixels, right? Which means if you designed your logo, right, to fit on the top of a piece of paper, you just want it to be in this corner right here. And then your company gets really successful, and you're like, ooh, I'm going to make a billboard, right? And you zoom in on your logo and put that on a billboard, your image is going to look like this. It's going to be all pixelated and jagged, right? Vector is mathematical. Like, all of these edges that are happening in vector are being calculated with math, basically. Like, raster, we're just making a bunch of points. Vector, we are drawing mathematical lines between dots. And if you zoom in infinitely close to that, it's always going to be a smooth line, because math is math. Like it always continues to have an equal to it. Right? So we're calculating these paths on stuff. So interestingly, I guess this is a little bit of a caveat, but it's a good question. Raster imaging and vector imaging are stuff you're going to find a little bit more in the visual effects or the visualization concentration, because it's a little bit more focused on creating different design, generally 2D designed elements. Right? So yeah, I can show you some more of that. Most of what we put out here in renders are raster images. Like when you render an image, that's a raster image. But in Maya, like we can in theory zoom in infinitely close because all of the stuff that's happening inside of Maya is being calculated with vectors. So it's a little bit interesting that there is some crossover there. You also have to choose one of these classes, high fidelity modeling for entertainment or 3D lighting and rendering. You don't have to, I mean, you can choose to take them both, just like you can choose to take both of these, because you also have 16 credit hours of guided electives. Okay? So that means there's a list of classes that you can take. And for the most part, that list is any other digital media class plus a few others. Right? So let's say you like both lighting and rendering and modeling for entertainment. You could take modeling for entertainment and then take lighting and rendering as one of your electives. Right? So if you like both of those, that is an option in animation. Yes?
What exactly is modeling for entertainment? Is it just like making it really real or something?
So there's a slight difference between modeling for entertainment and later in the visualization concentration, you'll see 3D model design. So there's a lot of different reasons to create a model. And if you are creating a model for an engineer who's going to build a bridge, yeah, it's probably important it looks pretty because it's going to be out there where everybody can see it, but it's more important that it doesn't fall, right? So accuracy is important in modeling for engineering, modeling for interior architecture, interior design. Accuracy, if it's going to go to a 3D printer so they can print a prototype for it, like if we're printing a prototype of my bottle and my bottle's made of glass, and I model that so thin that the glass breaks when you pick it up, like that's not a good design element, right? However, if it's modeling for entertainment, if we're modeling this for my 3D character to pick it up and take a drink out of it in the middle of a short film, it just has to look good, right? So modeling for aesthetic purposes versus modeling for some actual like tangible product you're going to make is slightly different. Like modeling for entertainment, your accuracy is less important than aesthetic. Vice versa on like 3D model design. A lot of what happens in modeling for entertainment is just learning how to model stuff for video games and animation, basically. 3D model design is maybe modeling a little bit more for 3D printing or product design or industrial design. Somebody else have a question? Yes.
So I transferred in as a junior and kind of don't have room in my degree for a lot of electives.
I don't.
How many of these can be taken at the same time?
Do what?
How many of these can be taken at the same time?
How many can be taken at the same time? We'll get to it in terms of prerequisites here in just a second. The short answer is after midpoint review, you can take any 2, 3, or 4,000 level classes pretty much in whatever order, right? Animation Fundamentals is a 2,000 level class. After Animation Fundamentals, it's all free reign, right? I don't think that there's any of these. Like you can take 3D animation before character animation, or you can take character animation before 3D animation. How many of them can be taken at the same time in a semester is more about how much you value sleep. Our suggestion is that it's a strong suggestion, is that most people try to only take 2 digital media classes a semester. Because we recommend, or like it's expected, especially in the upper level classes, that you're going to spend probably 10 to 15 hours outside of class for every week that you're in class, right? Like there's just a lot of outside of class work. And there's only so many hours in the day. If you take 2 digital media classes, you're spending, let's say, 20 to 30 hours a week outside of class on those 2 classes. Plus you have a couple, like an English class and a whatever, then that means you pretty much have a full-time job as being a student, right? And if you take another one, then you're working 60 hours a week, and if anybody's ever had to work 60 hours a week, that gets really taxing on you after a few months.
Yeah, I was going to add that I'm actually transferring in as a senior, and I was told that I'm still pretty much going to be having to do 3 or 4 years to get everything done.
So, yeah, I am going to do my best to not say anything bad about any other schools. But a lot of schools will tell you, yeah, come to our school, take 2 years here, and then you just go to ETSU, take 2 more years, and you graduate. That's just not true. Like that, it may be true in some programs. It may be true in like nursing or whatever. It is true if you could possibly take 4 digital media classes in a semester. Every time I've seen a few people who have managed to pull off 3 in a semester, but in most cases when people take 3, they end up sort of sacrificing 1 a little bit. Like if there's one of them, like let's say you're super awesome in Photoshop already, like there's a chance that maybe you could squeeze in raster-based imaging and 2 more classes because Photoshop maybe isn't going to be as difficult for you. But if it's all new to you, like that's just a lot of work. So yes.
Is it possible to take any of the like ones at the top there at the same time as Midpoint Review?
Yes. Pretty much any 2,000 level class can be taken at the same time as Midpoint Review. So we're gonna talk about that here. Actually, let's just let's get through this real quick, and then I'll hop back to that spreadsheet and I'll kind of explain that a little bit more. I just wanted you to kind of see what all the classes are. Because we're in animation, I wanted to dig in this one deeply. But you'll see that visualization, they all kind of have a similar structure, right? There's the different classes that that you would take for each of these. So visual effects, you take typography, raster-based imaging, editing for digital media, visual effects compositing, motion graphics, and digital media for film and effects. Game design, you need a little bit of experience with scripting and coding. So there is a CSCI class that's a prerequisite that is required. High fidelity modeling for entertainment, because it's really hard to make a video game with no models. I mean, it's possible, but most games have some models in them. And so like, it's just, there's a lot of group-based projects in it. And so you learn how to model in that. Game design, I'll be honest, I get game design and interaction for game design and gameplay and testing. I get the content confused on which one is which, so that would probably be a Todd question. But most of those 3 classes are going to be group-based projects, right? And so what ends up happening in those classes is game design is really broad, right? There's just a lot of stuff that you can cover in that. You can go into game design and never model anything. You just do a bunch of coding and design. Gameplay design, mechanic design. Maybe you do user interface where you're mainly working in Photoshop and Unreal the whole time and you never model anything. Or maybe you're an environment artist and what you do is you just make 3D models all day long and you never script anything. There's like a real broad range. And so what ends up happening is usually those upper level classes, they do larger group projects. And whatever thing you are good at or interested in doing, you serve that role on the team. Right? If you're an environment modeler and you want to do more environment models, you say, oh, I'll be the modeler. Because of that, if modeling is what you're interested in, the game design concentration is probably the one where you get the most opportunities to do modeling in your daily classes. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take game design if you want to model, but recognize that if modeling is what you want to spend most of your time doing, that's probably the concentration that will get you the most opportunities for that. Visualization is the concentration that gives you most opportunities to work in 2D. So if you're really just not digging this 3D stuff, or you really just love drawing or design, visualization is probably the concentration that's going to give you the most opportunity to that. Having said that, the first 2 things on the list say 3D in them, right? There is some 3D development in there. 3D model design, again, is 3D printing, a little bit of modeling for concept art purposes. Recognize a lot of concept artists now don't just paint, they don't just draw. If you need a giant terrain of a city in the backdrop, they will just hop into a 3D program, make a bunch of simple models, bring that into Photoshop, and paint over them. Right? Like they use it for sort of block out purposes because it's really quick. And a lot of character artists will also do 3D sculpts of their characters just to figure out volume and sort of push it around, right? There are some concept artists that still do physical sculpts, right? They keep Sculpey in their office, and as they're sketching, they just break out some Sculpey and start making like real tangible versions of it. Sculpt's volume and shape is really hard to approximate sometimes in 2D, and just being able to figure that out. So 3D is still a part of it. Visualization though, like after that, almost all of the rest of this is 2D design related. And so really what's happening is you're learning 3D so you can implement it into whatever 2D elements you want, right? Photoshop will open 3D objects now, and you can open them and paint on them. So there's, I'm not necessarily sure how good that works, but it's in there. So I think it's just recognized that this is a tool that 2D artists can use. And I kind of glossed over visual effects. Visual effects, like, to me, like the way I usually sum it up to people is it involves video, right? It involves taking something and sometimes photography. It involves taking actual footage or photographs of things that exist and combining them in some way or mixing them in some way to either tell a story or to make an illusion, right? So visual effects, maybe you're blowing up that building, but you want it to look like that building is in Johnson City, so you film a background plate of Johnson City. You can posit it in there. You do motion tracking to where it feels like the building is staying in the right spot. You render that out. You can posit that into the video footage, so you get what looks like footage of a building exploding. Right? That is like so. That's how compositing works. All of these have things. I see a couple people shaking their head. All of these things have like things you'll like and things you'll not like. Like for me, visual effects, all of it sounds like fun, except for shooting video footage. If somebody else would bring me that, like I just hate working with a camera. I suck at it. I hate it because it has hurt me so many times. Like I go take a camera and I'm like, this is going to be a great picture, and I get back home and I'm like, what was that? What did I do? Like why? Like did I have the lens cap on? What happened? But all the rest of it to me is a lot of fun. You're probably hearing that in all of these things. Like some of you are like, I hate drawing. I don't want to draw. I don't want to do visualization. And some of you are like, I love drawing. I want to do visualization. Right? And that's how you should feel, but you probably all still have questions. Just in the sake of kind of moving forward, let's take if you have a couple of questions about what some of these classes are, I can sort of field those, but I think that's something I could pretty much go through and we could talk about every class and answer questions. More than anything, I just want to get you an idea of what each concentration is. Anything specific? Yeah.
Hey, I signed up for a regular pre-count. Do I need to change that to trigonometry?
No, you don't. Because I had to do that whole ordeal last semester. And I was supposed to take which is technically pre-calculus 2. But that got changed, and the advisor will actually change that in the system, and you just have to take regular pre-calculus.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like some of those questions about the core and like prerequisites for some of that, I don't always know. You all actually may know the answer better than me, just because I don't advise it. When in doubt, email Deborah. Like she will usually tell you for sure if that's okay. But as long as it's something she advised you to do, she understands the curriculum inside and out way better than the rest of us do.
I don't think my advisor specifically said trigonometry, so I guess I'm probably okay. I think Sam's probably right, but email her just in case and make sure. It's always better to ask beforehand, and like there may be something that was like an extenuating circumstance or something. So just in case, make sure. But I think that she's right. So, other questions? Yes.
How will we know who our professors were this time?
Well, so Midpoint, I'll get to that in just a second. Midpoint is kind of team taught. Like almost the entire faculty is teaching that. You have a professor of record for that, which is the person who is listed as your teacher for the class. This semester it was Professor James Renecki. But what ends up happening in that is you only meet 2 times in that class. You meet the first time for us to tell you what to do and how to proceed. Then we all meet as a group and look at your work and make some decisions there. And then we meet one more time after that
So I'll talk about that just a little bit more in a second. So don't sweat that too much, but we will. Other questions? Any questions about the classes here? Anything that you're curious about? Another question to consider having right now is you're enjoying. If there's any of this part that you're enjoying, asking me which concentration would be best for that, I can give you some feedback on that.
I wanted to know what the individual effects concentration, the editing for something, and then the one at the bottom. I can't remember exactly what it is.
Motion
film
graphics.
effects and editing for digital media.
So editing for digital media is editing footage. So it's, I think that, I don't know all of the projects, but it's using Premiere to tell a story, right? You go out and film different shots and learning how to edit those together for timing, for continuity, for cinematography. It's kind of the like narrative class, like you use that to tell stories with your video. Digital media for film and effects, I am honestly not sure on that one. Let's click on the little drop down here. They all have descriptions too. A study of the computer as a tool for acquiring, editing, and compositing a wide range of source media into high-resolution video programs. So it may be more of a class where you like make bigger digital media projects. So but I'm not 100% sure. I would ask James Livingston on that. And if visuals, like, that's another thing that if there's something in here that you are interested in, I can tell you which professors to go sit down and just have a conversation with them. And the earlier you do that, like the more they can tell you about it and get you kind of excited about it. One I will mention in here is motion graphics. It's one that kind of crosses over with animation a little bit. Motion graphics is what you see at the beginning and like end of films. Let's say you're watching House Hunters International or Cake Builders, whatever. There's so many different like Discovery Channel like things. And at the beginning of it, it has like all these like pieces of a house that fly together and build a house, and then the logo comes in on top of it. That sort of stuff is motion graphics. 3D animation, 2D animation kind of overlap with that. Like they both have a part in that. That is usually a job in some form of TV or film production setting. And it is extremely employable. Like there are lots and lots of jobs in that and people looking to fill those positions. If that sounds interesting to you at all, like I would jump on that relatively soon. I think that it's one of those like booming industries. It's because everything is competing for people's attention. Like I'm sure you watch a YouTube video all of 3 seconds before deciding to skip to the next one, right? And if they can't keep your attention for those 3 seconds, then they don't get the views, right? The same with TV. I'm like click. Like Netflix, like they better like be bringing their A game in that first minute, or I'm on to something else, right? So motion graphics is about keeping people's attention. Even if you go to like a conference, like keeping people's attention with some sort of video playing in the background. Like you'll even see it in stores now. Like there's TVs everywhere that has to have some form of motion that keeps you engaged, right? So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that one because I think that that's actually a really exciting field right now. So, yes.
What was the typography?
Typography is actually in the art department. It's because there's so much usage of text in video, like for titles and stuff like that, that learning how to use text well is important. Interestingly, typography is a class that a lot of different people have to take in a lot of different majors. And this is one that sometimes is offered in the summer. You'll start seeing advertisements pop up for taking summer classes in the spring. And that's one that you can sometimes take then and kind of, move forward a little faster. So, yes?
I really like 2D animation, but there's no way I'm going to be able to afford summer classes.
Oh, good question. So I every other semester, for a while, every semester, I taught a 2D animation course in the summer. The reason for that is because there's only one Greg, and there's only so many classes that I can teach in a regular semester. but yes, summer classes kind of suck because it's hard to get into them, hard to get financial aid to work with you. I am working on a scheme to, no, it's not really a scheme, a plan to propose getting 2D animation in the regular semester. It really is going to depend on like how many teachers we have that can cover the classes that I wouldn't be able to teach by teaching that. And also just space. Like we only have so many rooms right now. Yes.
Is Midpoint Review offered over the summer?
As of now, no. However, Midpoint Review shouldn't hold you back. We try to design Midpoint Review to where it doesn't keep you from progressing forward. So I think now's a good point to hop over back to this Midpoint Review sheet. So, so here's what we got. Principles of animation, principles of game design, visual effects, visualization. You're going to take all of those, usually your first 2 semesters of being here. So you'll take 2 one semester, 2 the next semester. Whew, it's the summer. You come back to school, right? So your second year here, which I guess that doesn't always work out for some people. Some people start in the spring, some people, whatever. You're really your third semester here. All of these classes were prerequisites to 2000 level classes, right? You can't take any of your 2000 level classes until you've had these 4. So an example of a 2000 level class in digital or in animation would be animation fundamentals and technical direction. Those are both 2000 level classes. So after you've taken these 4, you can take any of those. There's supposed to be another 0. So let's say, so like why are you doing this? Just don't, there we go. Okay, so when you come back, you take any 2000 level classes, your third semester here, after you finish your principles classes. At that point, you also have to take Midpoint Review. I would recommend taking it as early as possible. Midpoint Review is a 2000 level class. It's 1 credit hour. So in theory, you should be able to take Midpoint Review and maybe 1 or 2 digital media classes at the same time. And you can continue taking 2000 level classes as long as you want to, right? Midpoint Review, however, blocks you from taking anything past a 2000 level class. So Midpoint Review is a prerequisite for all 3 and 4000 level classes. Character animation, effects animation, 3D animation. Probably if 2D animation is a full-time class, it would sort of block you from taking that. So that means your second year here, you take Midpoint Review, or your third semester, you take Midpoint Review, and any 2000 level class that the advisor advises you to take for that concentration. But you can't take a 3000 level class until you pass Midpoint Review. So basically, this is our way of making sure you're prepared before you go on to those really difficult classes. Okay? So talking about particularly what Midpoint Review is. I've kind of sort of dropped a little bit of like ideas about it here and there, but just to kind of elaborately go over it. Midpoint Review is a 1 credit hour class that is mostly online. Like you get an email. Usually we meet within the first week of class as the entire class. We find some room that is big enough. It'll either be in this room. This semester there were 56 people in it, so this room wasn't big enough. We had to do it in the auditorium in the art department. We meet everybody at the same time and we say, this is what is expected of you in Midpoint Review. The short answer is all of the stuff you did in your principles classes, you're going to use that as a portfolio to apply to a concentration. Okay? So you need to be thinking about which concentrations you want to do or which concentration you're most interested in. And about halfway through the semester in Midpoint Review, you take all of your work from these classes, you put it in a folder, you submit this application form that says, this is the concentration I want to do, this is why, and it usually is due right after fall or spring break, whichever semester you're in. And then we sat down as the entire faculty of digital media sits down and has a conversation on whether to approve you or disapprove you. Like, that sounds scary, right? And it probably should, because like this is like kind of the only test you get here, right? We want to make sure that we don't throw you to the lions by letting you take a 3,000 level class, right? We want to make sure you are ready to move on. And it's not to be like judgy, and it's not to be like exclusive. It's to make sure you're going to be successful, right? If we look at all of your work and we see that there are, like, you were obviously struggling with everything, like, we don't want you to just go into that next class and keep struggling, right? We want you to go into that next class ready to make awesome work and succeed. So what you do, you got a question?
Sorry. Okay, so when y'all review, let's say that I wanted to do concentrate in animation, right? But I wasn't good at animation. Can y'all deny my request or change it or something?
So you wanted to do animation, but you weren't good at animation.
Yeah, like it wasn't up to par.
So we also use this kind of as an advising point. It has happened in the past. People have came in, I won't use the actual shows. People have came in and said, I want to do animation really, really badly. And we were like, but your animation isn't good. Your visualization is great. Why do you want to do animation? And their answer was, I love Steven Universe and I want to design characters just like in Steven Universe and I want to like write their stories. And I'm like, that's not animation. That's visualization. Like, obviously you just chose the wrong one. And so in that case, they sort of made the wrong choice. And so they got turned down. But the advisement afterwards, where we sat down with them and talked to them about all the work, was just apply again for visualization. It's a 1 credit hour class, so it doesn't really like make a huge impact on your GPA or anything like that, especially if you repeat it and fix it. Apply to visualization, maybe fix some of the animation work just to show you're putting some effort into it, and they got it. So like it is designed where it shouldn't hurt you too bad, and since there are still more 2,000 level classes to take, you can take that class 2 semesters in a row, and it really doesn't slow down your progress in the curriculums. Yes?
So aside from working on all that stuff, like our stuff from the principal's classes, and doing the application, is there any other work to do in Midpoint Review?
Nope. Well, so what the work is to revise this stuff, basically. Meet with us and say, like, you're supposed to find the instructor for whichever concentration you're most interested in. You have half a semester to meet with them and revise the work to make sure that you're not going to have any problems getting it, right? So most of it is just a revision class, but no, it's a 1 credit hour class, meaning we're trying to not demand too much of you from that class, right? It shouldn't be hours and hours of work. But let's say like your render didn't turn out that great in animation, like your render didn't turn out that great, and your scheme flickers once, right? Like, yeah, it's like, just go back and like work that up, and like just showing the effort to put those revisions in usually carries a lot of weight in that. There are times where we look at it and we're just like, you know, it may just be easier to start over, because like you're probably better at this now. And there are other times where we look at it and we say, you know what, focus on your other classes. This is fine. Like, just go ahead and turn this in. Like, we can't say like you're definitely going to get in, but we can say you probably shouldn't be worried, right? And so like there's advising points for that. The big thing, it's 3 projects from each of these classes. Most of these classes are designed to have 3 projects in them. Some of them have 4. This one has 4. Later, this one will only have 3. I'm going to kind of combine some stuff. But for this class, you are taking it now. You would take your best 3 projects. You'd make sure those are polished up. Those go in your animation folder. Now, it seems intimidating. Basically, it's like in the middle of this, we're going to decide whether you get to go on or not. We tried to make this as not damaging to your life as possible. So if you don't pass it, You can repeat it. It's just 1 credit hour. If you make that grade, it replaces that F, and you get to move on. And there's still other 2,000 credits, 2,000 level credit classes that you can take the second time you take the class as well, right? So it doesn't really hold you back from graduation. If you go through it and the advisement is something like, I think you got the wrong department. Like, what you said you wanted to do here was be a computer programmer for like IBM or something. Like you want to write code all day, and we don't do that here. You meant computer science. Although that would be a huge impact to a person to be like, what? I'm in the wrong department and I have been for a year and a half. We tried to make that as easy on you as possible, because if you've already gone through all the principles classes and taken a 2,000 level class, you pretty much already have a digital media minor already. Like, that's all there's really required for a digital media minor. I think maybe one more class may be required, or an art history or something like that. Yes.
It's all the original 4 classes. When your class is in, 2 classes in either 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah, I knew it was something like that. Yeah. So, and if you're taking midpoint review and you already have one 2,000 level class or 2, then you're pretty much done. Or you would just have to take one more class, right? So although that might set you back a little bit in that new department's curriculum, you already have a minor that would apply to it. And so some of the departments that sometimes happens with, computer science, radio, film, TV, or radio, TV, film, RTVF, and art. Those are kind of the 3 big ones. I would say also probably digital marketing, whether people realize it or not. That one's also another one that is very tangentially related. Or maybe even interior design, or I think it's called interior architecture now. So those are all like connected classes that if you're like, what I really want to do is design spaces that people live in. I'm like, wow, we have a great department for that. It's just not here, right? And so it's also to make sure we catch you before you get to your senior year and say, I didn't enjoy this. This isn't what I should have done. Right? I should have majored in something else. We had people that was happening to them before we implemented this new curriculum, and that's not good for anybody, right? That's not good for you. That's not good for us. We want you to be happy with what you get out of this. We want you to be successful and be able to use this. Yes.
I'd like to point out that that's what I did. Is I was 3.5 years into a completely different degree at a different school before I transferred in here. So nobody used to be worried about having to move around.
Yeah, and that happens. Like, we have people who have done that here, like who are in a different or a different major here, and they were just like, I'm not enjoying this. I'm going to switch over. So hopefully this will let you know by your 3rd semester here, are you in the right place and are you going to be successful? After you pass midpoint review, like, the world is your oyster. You can take whatever classes pretty much that you want, whatever digital media classes that you want in whatever order. There's not a ton of prerequisites. The cool thing about it is, let's say you like character animation. Let's say you take your 2nd semester or your 2nd year here, you take midpoint review, animation fundamentals, and you're like, oh, I really love the character animation part of that. So your 4th semester here, still in your 2nd year, you take character animation. That's a 4,000 level class. You're completely eligible to do that, right? And you love character animation. This is so much fun. I love it. Like, that's what would have happened to me. That is what happened to me. But you just took like your most exciting class your sophomore year, right? We realized that one class of character animation or one class of effects animation isn't enough. So I believe, the vast majority at least, of all 3,000 and 4,000 level classes are repeatable. So that means if you take character animation your sophomore year, and you get some great work out of it, next time it's offered, you can take it again, and it counts for you as character animation 2. And then the next time it's offered, you can take it again, and it counts for you as character animation 3. That should work with effects animation and 3D animation. I have people in character animation next semester who are going to be taking it for the 3rd time. It's not the same work. It will be that you'll still hear like some of the same lectures. It'll be a mixed class, so you'll be in there with people who are taking it the first time. But your assignments will be different, more challenging, and a little bit more flexible. you'll be able to start customizing it, at least for character animation and 3D animation. You'll be able to start customizing it to be to address what you want to do as a career. Right? That's important because your last semester here, all the way in the future, forward, way out there, right, is portfolio. Yeah. Portfolio is like if midpoint review, like midpoint review is portfolio junior, right? Portfolio is where we're getting ready to kick you out of the nest. I just got through watching this really awesome documentary on Netflix. It's called Penguins Spy in the Huddle. And it's about it's a documentary, but basically if like you go in there like to a bunch of penguins with a camera, they're gonna scatter. So what they did is they made these little penguin robots with cameras in them, and they sent them in. And so like there's this like the penguin cam, like it is freaking hilarious. It is so good because like they're like jumping on top of the penguin cam, and the penguin cam falls over. Like, oh, it's so funny. But then like some baby penguins die in it too, so it gets a little sad at spots. But it's nature. Like, baby penguins die. It sucks, but baby penguins live too. Like lots of them live. Anyway. Why did I bring that up? Oh yeah, we're gonna kick you out. So eventually you have to let that baby penguin out and run on its own, right?
Then it's gonna die, right?
And, well, I mean,
I hope
it
not.
might freeze to death.
Like,
But
I
if
like
you
how your reasoning was like, let me mention this penguin documentary, and this equals to me kicking you out.
exactly, well, exactly, right? And you don't want to kick that baby penguin out before it's ready to survive on its own. Right? What we really want is when you leave here, we want you to be able to use the work you made here to get a job. Right? That's not a guarantee. It's a very competitive industry. But we want to make sure we've given you a fighting chance, right? Like you equipped that baby penguin with a switchblade, go out there and fight the world. Like this is going to be an animation soon. Is anybody taking notes?
I mean, you're recording it, right?
I am like documentation, copyright. I own that. So I don't think that's how copyright works. So we just want to make sure you're going to be successful before we kick you out of the department. Okay. It's not kicking you out. By that time, you'll be wanting out, right? Like you'll be like, I'm ready to go. I need monies. And so portfolio is sort of like the grown-up version of Midpoint Review, except for it's really stressful. Actually, I'm currently looking over here at one of our portfolio students who's been working all night apparently. Portfolio, that's why I try to get you all to come to that, right? Is so you know what's in your future. Portfolio is where you take all of the work you have that you made while you were here, right? And, sorry, I want to make sure I am recording this. I am. Portfolio is where you take all the work you made when you're here, you find the best parts of it, and you put together a portfolio that is ready for you to apply to jobs. For animation, that's usually a demo reel. It's a video with your best work in it. Character animation, it may just be a minute worth of animation or less, right? For visualization, maybe you have a website that has all of your designs on it, and you know it's interactive, it's well designed, so people can navigate it and see your work. Yes.
For portfolio, the character animation stuff. Like we don't have to model any of the characters, right? They're only going to be looking at the actual movement.
Yeah. Animation, when you submit for an animation job, if you did model the character, sometimes they're like, oh, that's cool, you can also model it. But like nobody ever asked me, like I worked for Firaxis 5 years in-house and for another 6 years out of house. They never asked me to model anything, even though I'm actually a pretty good modeler. However, if you're working for a small studio, like a small game design company, maybe they're making like a mobile game or something, being able to model means they don't have to hire an extra person. And so sometimes it's helpful to be able to say you have those skills. Or if you're applying to a job specifically wants those skills, you would customize that application for them. Like you maybe would give them a different demo reel than you would send to Rockstar or something like that. But yeah, Rockstar is never going to ask an animator to model anything or rig anything. Like they're just going to be looking at, can you get a performance out of this character? Yes.
This is a random question that I just thought of as far as what your concentration is.
Mhm.
So downstairs on the big TV screen, before they would have it had the like seniors and like what their concentration was, and it basically like showed like their work and like what they did and stuff, which I guess is like their portfolio and everything.
It was like a scaled back version of what they presented for.
Yeah. And I know you said that like to pick out your concentration, you basically have like the four, which is like visualization, video games, animation, visual effects, and everything. But there are some where I guess it went like more specific. Like I remember like specifically one was like specifically rigging,
Mhm.
like they were a rigging director or something, and then there was another one that was basically just like texturing, and that was it. And I want to know like what defines that, like how specific that goes. Like
Pretty much if there's a job for it, if you can go to a job search website, which you all will be very soon, because that's one of the assignments we're going to look at. If you can go to a job search website and somebody is advertising for that position, then that's a career. So modeling is a career. Lighting and rendering is a career. Texturing is a career. Rigging is a career. There's a job called technical animator, which is somebody who is like a little bit of an animator and a little bit of a rigging artist at the same time. And they can kind of also do a little bit of scripting, like build tools and stuff. Character animator, creature animator is one that is becoming much more common in visual effects and film because like Supergirl has to fight a new monster every week. And so like there's a whole job for that. If you show you can do creatures a little bit better than the next person, then that's a good one. 2D animator, stop motion animator. Like yeah, there's like animation. There are probably at least I can think off the top of my head at least probably 15 different jobs that you might apply. So when you're in portfolio, you're building the portfolio for that job, for the job you're looking for. So we got a couple hands up. I think yours was up first.
Yeah, you mentioned, in portfolio specifying you're good at one thing, but also having another thing you're good at. Is it generally frowned upon in portfolio to say you went to the animation concentration, but you're also good at modeling, and most of your animations have your own models? Would it be frowned upon to say, name, animator, and modeler?
It wouldn't be frowned upon. Like what I would probably say you would do is you would have a web page that has two different demo reels on it, or two different you would have your animation demo reel and then a modeling section of that as well, where you're showing off your model.
So for portfolio, you would specifically choose the one that you think you're better at to present or something?
We've had some people who present both, who say that they're basically a double threat. They're going to apply to both jobs. Usually it's not that far apart. Usually it's like rigging and animation. Modeling and animation, you're not going to find any job posts that say, I need a modeler and animator.
Yeah.
There is a job post that says, I need a 3D generalist. Generalist means you can do all of it. Like you're a one-person studio. It doesn't mean you've tried all of it once. It means like you're really good at all of it. Usually generalist is somebody who's done it for a little while, but occasionally we've had some people leave here as 3D generalists. So I guess that's kind of how you would present a portfolio. Could be, I'm going to apply to two different types of jobs, modeling jobs and animation jobs, and here's my portfolio for both of them. But by the time you get to portfolio, I have a feeling what's going to happen is you're going to gravitate toward one being a specialty and the other being your secondary skill. And that's good to have. Like that's kind of mine. I'm an animator with a secondary skill of modeling. But when somebody contacts me for contract work, the majority of the time is for animation. So, yes.
So you were mentioning the scenario about creature animations. Like, is that technically character animation, or would character animation be solely humanoid?
Yes. So it depends on the company, right? Like there are some people. Like I was a character animator, but I was also kind of the horse guy. Like I don't necessarily know why, because I cannot ride horses, I have some video footage as proof that I cannot ride horses. But I did one of the first horse animations for, I think it was Napoleon. It came out really well. And so that meant that whenever a horse character came up, it somehow always landed in my lap. And it's because they're like, Greg's really good with creatures, right? And so sometimes in a character animation setting, it's like, oh, this person has to, like, this person turns into a monster that walks on all fours. Let's give it to that person who's really good with quadrupeds. And some productions are like, that whole studio just specializes in creatures. And so you'll never do character animation, you'll just do creatures. And so it's kind of a little of both. What I would say is like, it's almost never, like creatures are kind of like characters that are a little bit more advanced, right? Bipedal characters that are a little bit more advanced. So usually by the time you get good at creatures, you also got pretty good with body mechanics of humans. It also brings up with animation. It's not just character animator. Like sometimes they specialize even more specifically to that. I'm a character animator for games. I'm a character animator for film. I'm a character animator who wants to specialize in cinematics for games. And like getting that specific, because you'll see that in some of the job posts, cinematic animator is a position, right? And what that means is not only can you do good performances, you can do good performances and get them into a game engine setting. And acting inside of a video game also is a little different than it is in film, right? It's like all of the acting that I did, my character was talking right at the screen like a newscaster, right? But it still had to be entertaining. Versus a Pixar movie, they're never going to look at the screen. They're never going to talk to the viewer, right? And so there's some differences there too that you would show. If you're going to do in-game animation, that means you're really good at body mechanics and weight, like the way a character like feels weighty, feels like they're moving correctly, because what you're going to be doing all the time is runs and attacks and stuff like that. So
character animation is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
In that class, will there be doing any like voices or anything? Like we'll be doing
I can break out character animation for you a little bit more clearly. The first time through it, you do 4 major character animations. You do a body mechanics piece that's a character like stepping over, walking around stuff, and tripping usually. They don't always have to trip. The second animation is a game set. So it's 4 animations that we will get into a video game that you can actually play. It's not a fun game, but you can basically run around in Unreal with your character and using the animations that you made. The third animation is acting without audio, so pantomime acting. It's not pantomime acting, it's just acting without audio. So like, a reaction to something or something like that. And then the last animation is a voice acting piece. So you would do a lip sync of, you'd find some audio clip from a show you like or something like that, and you would animate a clip to that. The second time through, I make more advanced versions of all of those, and I also add creature shots into that. And so a lot of times people will start doing quadruped animations, and you get to kind of pick from a pick list of different challenges the second time you take it. The third time is going to be interesting. I'm trying to get some ideas for that one right now, but I think it's going to be more of a project-based thing where you make a small short production as a group in there. I think is what I'm doing for the third one. It just depends on how many people I have in that third time through. I think I'll have 2, so it's that.
When taking the higher classes, can we take classes that are outside of our focus?
Yes. So that's a good question. One of the reasons I put game animation in the character animation class is because if you decide what you're wanting to do as character animation for games, after you've taken that, one of your electives could be one of the game design classes. And like I said, in game design, each person is kind of doing a different thing on the team. And if you get in that class and you're like, I can animate and I can rig a little bit, then they're going to let you animate and rig everything for that project. And you're going to end up with a bunch of in-game animations for a finished game. And that's a really nice piece to have in your portfolio. So yeah, you can cross over. You have so many of those guided electives, but pretty much all digital media classes are guided electives for each concentration. So like in that 3,000 and 4,000 level class, if you decide you want to take one from games, one from visualization, one from visual effects, yeah, you're cool There's a list somewhere of which ones count, but it's pretty much all the digital media classes plus some theater and some art classes sort of sprinkled in there as well. Other questions on this? So portfolio is a little bit stressful in that it is not like midpoint review. You put your stuff in a folder, and then you go home and like pray, like whatever happens. Like, but you don't have to stand up in front of anybody and be like, "Hi, I'm Greg, and this is why I should." Like, you just put it in a folder with a little form that you fill out online that says why you should be in there, and then you just wait, and you'll get an email that says, "Congratulations, you're in," or "Sorry, come talk to these professors to learn why you didn't get in." Right? Midpoint review, we have I used to be able to say a pretty consistent number. It used to be about 10% of the people who applied didn't get in, which meant that 90% were, right? That number's gone up a little bit now. Like the last couple of times it's been a little higher, but we've also had some people who are repeating the class, some people who are, like the classes are just getting a little bit bigger. And frankly, you all are raising the bar. Like every time that class happens, the work looks better. And that means that there's some people who aren't getting in just because they didn't also raise the bar. The rest of the class is kind of pushing it, and they're on cruise control, right? And so like that's why I say like putting some extra work in the work you get out of this class, even if it's not while you're here, you can pass this class, and still like everybody else makes such good revisions and pushes it so much that yours is kind of the weak one in the list, and our advisement would be to do some revisions on this and show you're wanting to continue getting better at this. So midpoint review, you don't have to present anything. If you get in, we give you some pizza. Like basically we have one more meeting where we're like, come eat pizza with us. We'll tell you what's next. And basically at that point we say, these faculty members have agreed to be your advisor. It's your career advisor, not your academic advisor. So Deborah will still be the person who tells you which classes to take. We will be the person that works with you as you work toward portfolio, right? Like you say, I want to be a character animator. You say, well, cool. That means you'll be taking these classes. You should probably also be reading these books or watching these movies. And like we just have some conversations whenever, it's not very formal. It's not like once every Thursday we meet for the advising meeting. Whenever you have some questions, I'm there for you to come contact, and I can give you some career advice. That's building toward portfolio, where you do have to stand up in front of everybody and say, hi, I'm Greg Marlowe, and I want to be a character animator. You don't have to use that voice if you don't want to, but if you want to.
Will it help my chances?
So portfolio, from my understanding, I didn't go through it in the same format, but from my understanding, is very stressful. You present 2 times. You present halfway through the semester, where we usually like it's a pretty intense. Like if you're going to see bad reviews, it's usually at that one, right? That's the one where where people aren't prepared enough or whatever, and we let them know, and it's very public. Like you're standing in front of all the faculty. And I invite every class that I have to that, so much so that I give you extra credit for it to come, right? So all of those people will be there watching, so you need to be prepared and like showing that you're, like defending your work, right? And then you present again at the very end of the semester, literally the week before finals week. And we all meet as a faculty group afterwards to decide whether you pass that class or not. That class is required to graduate. So occasionally, people already have graduation invitations sent out, like people are on their way. You have to let them know, hey, I didn't follow through with what I was supposed to, and now I'm not going to graduate, right? It usually is not that embarrassing, and like usually they still probably walk, and then just back next semester, lightly take that class again. But it's a big deal because like we do not want people who are unprepared leaving here with giant ETSU shirt being like, this is all ETSU can do, right? Like we want you to be a good example, not even just for the school, but like you don't want like 3 people who are terrible artists applying for the same job that you are with the word ETSU on their resume, right? And that company just starting to think, oh, ETSU, they're just shoveling people out. Like there's no quality there at all. We go to a conference every year called ECGC, East Coast Game Conference, where we present a booth, and we look really good at that conference. Like people respect that, and the people who walk by that booth are the people who work at Epic, and the people who work at Insomniac, and the people who work at Red Storm. Like we're trying to make an image for ourselves that says our students are good and you should hire them. And so we want to make sure that that's the truth, right? And so portfolio can be stressful. Having said that, if done correctly, we have people every semester who graduate from here and go on to work at great jobs. You can tell by the people we're having come back to speak. We have 2 people who have gotten hired at Rooster Teeth within the last year. We have multiple people who are working at High Res. We have people who got hired at 343. We have people who have gone on to like lots of different film studios. And we have people who graduate and are still looking for a job, but I'm very confident we'll get one soon, right? Just because your portfolio is good enough to graduate doesn't mean you're 100% going to get hired the next day, right? A lot of times that means you're really close and you need to do one more project that really shows you're capable of this skill. And sometimes people just aren't ready to apply, like for personal reasons. I know people who are like, I'm not ready to start applying to jobs yet because my fiance is still in grad school, or I'm not ready to start applying to jobs yet because I'm saving up money to move to California first, right? And then there are some people who graduate who are great character animators or great whatever, and they just find something else that makes them happy in life, right? Like there was this one lady who graduated a few semesters back who was really pretty good at modeling and design. And she fell in love with being a forest ranger. So she's like, I'm gonna do it. And we're like, just get this one life, be happy. Like do the thing that makes you happy, right? Hopefully this is the place that you will get these skills to do the things that make you happy. Now I do know we have a couple of people in here who are digital media minors, I think. Or possibly even considering being digital media minors after taking the principles classes. Midpoint review and portfolio do not apply to you. But it's nice to know that those exist. And we have sometimes people who come in here thinking like this is their minor and change their mind and say, no, I'm actually going to switch to that as my major. So just know that that's that is the other thing is this just applies to digital media majors. I've talked a lot. I don't even know what time it is. 9:51. Any questions? Lots of questions? I kind of briefly showed you. You can look at this pretty much at any time. Just be like careful and not rude about it. Like up on the ETSU E3 server, DIGM classes, there's the Midpoint Review Fall 2018. These are the applicants this semester. I will not tell you who passed or who failed, but you can get a good idea of the range of quality of what people are turning in and what is expected of you in this. So I'll just click on some of them so you can see from Cameron's. Hers is always really good. This is what we asked for in Midpoint Review. She formatted hers very well. All 4 of the concentrations have 3 projects that are turned in. If your project required multiple images, then there's a folder for that, or you would make a folder for that. Animation, though, it's just 3 videos. I think visualization is usually 3 images, usually a JPEG, I think, is the format she wants. And then there's also an extras folder. If there's something else you've made, because you're in 2,000 level classes at that point, right? Let's say you're in Animation Fundamentals, you do a project in Animation Fundamentals that is awesome, and you're like, oh, I want to show this off too. You can put that in the extras folder. And sometimes that shows us, oh, like they're already doing this. Like they may have struggled a little bit in the animation class or the principles of animation class, but they're nailing it now. Like we can give them the benefit of the doubt. However, if what you turn in only has 2 animation files in there, no matter how good the extras folder is, how good any of it, even if you're not applying to animation, even if you're applying to visualization, and you don't turn in all 3 animation projects, it's an automatic fail. Okay? Everything has to be in there. Yes.
So even for the classes like this one has 4, do you always at least need 3
It's
spots.
what is required for me, I always think you should have a stinker. Like if there's one of them that you're just like, that one didn't turn out so well, and you're like, I just don't want to show them that one. That's okay. In the future, this class will only have 3. So yeah, you're only required to turn in 3 for each class. Some classes may have 4 projects or even 5 projects. You just pick your best 3. Make sure that they're projects. Like for example, we have exercises in here too, like the maze, right? And although that was good, that doesn't count as one of the projects. It counts as an exercise. So you could, if that one turned out really good, toss it in the extras folder. For this class, it's the bridge, the breakfast, the bottle and the ball, and the bot. And if it's the first time you noticed, all 4 of them start with B. Yes?
For my visualization class, one of my projects was a spooky.
Mm-hmm.
Do I just take pictures of it?
Yes, yes. In fact, if you've already done that, I think down in the faculty suite, I think he's brought those out so you can take them home. So if you want to get that, and take, or you may have already gotten yours from a previous class. Yeah, but that's it would just be pictures of it. I think that project is slowly kind of changing or going away. So, but you would say that's the project you had in that class. And, visualization, like there are 4 or 5 different teachers that teach those classes, and so there's some slight variations in it. So when you're in midpoint review, you'll just talk with the visualization teachers and say, these were the 3 I was planning on submitting. Is that okay? And they may have some advice for you to be like, oh, you know what? Turn this one in instead because that meets the criteria better. So that one gets a little confusing because it's kind of been trying to focus in on what their 4 projects are. And the same with me. Like there are some versions of this class I've taught where the project was a little bit different. Like the breakfast project didn't have the steam in it; it just had the cereal or something like that. And I just need to know like that's the version you were in. I can usually spot that and say, oh, they were in that version of the class. That's okay. Okay. I thought there was one more thing I was going to say. Oh yeah, all of the projects need to be in here, which means if everything that you've done in this class is currently on like one rusty thumb drive that the computer only sometimes recognizes, back that up. Like I have seen if you're saving everything on your documents folder and on the profile, like I have seen people who like something messed up with financial aid and they got unenrolled from the school for a day and it wiped their entire like back that stuff up. There have been people who have came through midpoint review that had to recreate all 3 projects from a class or more than one class. I had a hard drive crash. That sucks, but like we still need to be able to see it. We can't just give everybody the benefit of the doubt, or everybody would lose their hard drive for the classes that they didn't like, right? So make sure that you have them in there. Browse through these to see some of the really good examples. I think I've shown you some examples here before. Oh yeah, I gotta do this. So, this was her bridge project. She actually decided to just like forego the bridge entirely and just do her own little scene. That's fine. Serial project. So there's a couple of little things with this one, but very solid in terms of lighting and rendering. I wish it used a different shaped serial so it wouldn't be flat. But and then she went a little extra and like did a whole character on this. It probably also could have been a little stronger if she'd done just a little bit of something with the arms, but totally within the range. And then this is stuff that she made in the principal's class. So you'll get to see like she did some objects bouncing. Oh yeah. One of her other extras, her bottle and ball piece came out pretty good. This is another one from Principals. So you can just kind of see the just the extras she put in as well. Now again, you don't have to have an extras folder, but you're welcome to have an extras folder. So you can click through here. You'll find that some people are organized slightly differently. There are some people that fail this class because they give us what we call a file dump. It's like, I will just drag my D drive into this folder, and we're like, what are we supposed to look at it? Is it final number 7 or is it final revision? Like what did you like? You have to dig through stuff, and we're like, that shows one, that you're not following instructions, and two, that you were not capable of organizing it even to this level, right? So just make sure it's organized cleanly. Make sure you're following instructions on the file types and stuff like that. So for example, an OBJ is not an image. So that's one we probably can't open, right? So you're just getting some ideas of some of the different stuff that people have in here. Feel free to browse these and just see what people had. Again, Jarrett McGill, his work is very solid. He was the guy who did this one. I think this is the revised version that we were talking about. Right? The other thing you want to make sure of is that none of the other folders keep you out of the concentration that you're wanting to go into. Right? For example, if somebody wanted to go into visualization. Sorry, this is another professor. We make sure everything's all right. Hello? Hey. Yeah, I'm actually just wrapping up the class. What's up? Yeah. Actually, yeah, could I give you a call back in just 5 minutes? Okay, cool. Bye. I thought it was going to be a quick one. That was going to be a long one. We have, this is actually something you may be interested in. We have a few students who are leaving today for California for a conference trip. So I mentioned ECGC. Every year we take probably about 15 people to North Carolina. The school pays for it, so you can go on this trip, and you go there and meet a bunch of different people who work at different studios, watch presentations from them, and rub elbows to hopefully try to get jobs. Right? We have another one that's a little smaller. That's in look, the conference is bigger, but the trip is smaller. I think we're sending 6 people to CTN, Creative Talent Network Expo in California. And that's where Glenn Keane and Eric Goldberg do the keynote speeches. It's really awesome. Maybe not the best time to be flying into California right now, considering there's a lot of fires going on there. So hopefully that's going to be okay. Anyway, that is actually part of your digital media fee. Some of that money goes into a travel fund for students, and so whenever those opportunities come up, you should apply for them. You should consider those. ECGC is a really pretty good one if you're interested in games at all, even for animation, because there's just a lot of companies there that are small and relatively local. So you can possibly meet some people who can give you a job. So, other questions? What was I saying before? Okay. I'm going to stop talking about all this. Browse this folder so you get an idea. You're going to have more questions later on. But what I want you to do right now is I want you to be thinking about what it is you want to do. Right? What it is you want to do after portfolio. Right? Not after midpoint, not after this semester. 4 years down the road or whenever it is you're going to graduate, I want you to be thinking about what job you think you want. Right? On D2L, I don't know if I've done this right. I think I have. D2L is not something I use a lot, but I'm trying to get into it a little bit better. I've made a discussion in here. And so this will be exercise 6. Basically what I want you to do is, in this job research discussion on D2L, I want you to post links to 5 job posts that you think you might want to do someday, and then write a few sentences about each explaining why you think you might enjoy them. That needs a comma right there. Sorry. Then comment on at least 3 other posts from other students in class. So I'm giving you a little bit of time on this one. You have until November 19th, which is Monday, to make the first post. Okay, to say these are the 5 jobs I'm interested in, and then you have until December 9th. I gave you a little bit of a window there, so y'all can just kind of have a conversation. So sometime in between there, you'll comment on 3 different people's posts, right? Like maybe you're like, I didn't even know UI artist was a thing. Maybe you were like, I also saw that job post, but I wasn't for sure if I would like it because of this. I will also chime in when I can to kind of give you some feedback, but I want to hear you like sort of explore this. This is time for you to explore the job industry, even if animation, like it doesn't have to be an animation. If you're like, I know I don't want to do animation. This is my least favorite class. I think I want to do this. That's cool. Like no hard feelings. Like find the job you want to do. I gave you some links to some job posts here, but you're absolutely not limited to these. If you also find another search engine that you like that will help you find some other stuff, like use those. Creative Heads, LinkedIn Jobs, ArtStation, Gama Sutra, how do you say it? All of those are big job posts for the game and animation industry. There are probably others for other concentrations, and of course, there's the common ones: Indeed, Monster, all of those other Glassdoor. So find all that. Let me know, and let me know if you have any issues with the actual D2L part of this. What's going to happen is after December 9th, I'm going to look at that and I'm going to count. And it's going to say Ashley did her initial post by December 9th or by November 19th, and she commented on 3. Check. If she did her initial post and commented on 2, X. Right. So basically, you just have to write like 4 posts, and yes.
December 9th is Sunday.
Is it?
Yes.
I guess you're right. No, I did that. I don't know if I can edit this. The latest date is fine. Like I really was just trying to choose a date that was before. I guess it is. That makes sense though, because what it is it's the Sunday before finals week. So pretty much, I guess I was saying before finals week. I will default to the latest date, which would be the Monday, which would be the December 10th. Let me see if I can actually edit this now. And if I can, I'll. Stupid back button. There we go. So I went ahead and extended it to that Monday, December 10th. Basically, I just wanted to make sure that it was due before finals week. That way, people weren't like scrambling to get it in by the last day of class and not actually getting a good discussion out of it. Again, like feel free to take your time a little bit with this and actually have a meaningful discussion. Like, yes, I agree and concur. Like that is not a response. I want you to explore this. You should learn something from this just by having a conversation with each other. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and save this. Did I already save it? I don't know. And if anything's messed up with D2L for whatever reason, let me know and I can update that. So, all right, I'll let y'all go. Thanks for bearing with me. If you have more questions later, let me know and I'll be with you.